got a very perverted imagination, Mr. Omani, I have to say.
A very precise, perverted imagination.
Wash your brain out with soap. How very dare you.
If I had one, I would.
Thomas, have you done your Christmas shopping yet?
Yes and no. So, as I am living in a different country to most of my family now, I have devised a dubious plan to get over paying for excess carry-on baggage.
You're gonna give your relatives the gift of airline hacking. You're gonna give them life tips, are you?
No. So what I have done is, and I did this in previous years before, just purely so I had everything correct. In true son of accountants fashion, I have an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh God, Layla has one of those.
Everyone that I need to buy for, and I have links to all of their presents, and not only that, I'm going to get all the presents delivered to their homes, pre-wrapped.
See, Layla has a spreadsheet, and it's just... I'm suspicious of people with spreadsheets, basically, as a sort of general life rule.
But see, that's because you're allowed to be on medication and I'm not. So I gotta do what I gotta do.
Which member of the remaining Ink Master contestants do you think uses spreadsheets? Who uses a spreadsheet and who doesn't? Anthony uses spreadsheets, 100%, even though he's lost track of his child.
Do you know who I really think uses spreadsheets? Joel Madden. Dark Matt Lauder.
You reckon Madden's a spreadsheet boy? I mean, he is a self-made man, you know.
He's also a millionaire as well, so he probably has someone to do it for him. So you know.
He's probably got a spreadsheet guy.
Yeah, a specific spreadsheet
Madden's
guy
got
that
a spreadsheet guy.
Designs all his spreadsheets. But like, to be honest, what I used to do, because I used to work in like retail, hospitality a lot, I would wait until like that last paycheck right before Christmas, when you're after doing overtime, you're after working like 80 hours in a week, and then do all my Christmas shopping in one go. Whereas now I have much more of a steady income coming in, so I can like plan ahead, you know, who needs this, who needs that. I much more prefer buying people practical presents, like stuff that they will actually use.
Yeah, see, I do that, and then the first gift I ever bought Layla when we got together was a toaster. And she says that wasn't appropriate. It was a very nice toaster, and she didn't have a good one. And a kettle. In fact, it wasn't just a toaster.
That is the wrong side of practicality right there. That's a bit
like
weird.
Toast?
How long were
Who
you
doesn't
going
like
out
toast?
before you bought her a toaster?
Like 6 months. Who doesn't like toast, Thomas?
But here's a question: do you keep the toaster on the counter or in the cupboard?
I used to be a cupboard guy. However, currently counter, because we haven't got a very big kitchen, and so counter it is. In my old flat, I was a counter guy. I was a cupboard guy.
I thought you were going to say in your old age, you don't want to bend over too much to get the toaster out. You know, you might hurt your back.
Don't, mate. Don't. Please don't.
But yeah, what is, so you're making toast in the morning. What is the go-to toppings for the toast?
Vegemite or Marmite, in that order, depending on what I have available. If I'm feeling fancy, I might add some hummus. If I'm feeling fancy, I might add some avocado. If I'm feeling fancy, I might add some vegan cream cheese, maybe some vegan boursin. Maybe if I'm feeling in a particular mood, Marmite peanut butter. But generally, it's Marmite themed as a fundament.
Matt, I mean this with all offense intended. You are a disgusting little man.
How dare you? How dare you? I've got a Marmite tattoo, Thomas. Speaking of tattooing, as we should be on this podcast, I've got because well, the right answer, and you've just mortally offended me, is because it's a memorial tattoo for my best friend who died.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, you didn't know. I set you up for that one.
Maybe if your friend didn't like Marmite, they wouldn't have died.
Whoa, shots fired. No, because Marmite's excellent as well, you know.
No, Marmite is not excellent. If I wanted to like eat pure yeast, I would just drink a beer or eat some bread.
Well, I like those things too. See, you're missing out.
If only you listening at home could see my face and see the disgust on my face right now.
Look, I'm going to show you this. Hold on. For the podcast listeners.
So as I am filling time, Matt is showing me a jar of Marmite with Dr. Lauder on it. This is what's going to get you cancelled.
It is. I'm a member of the like Marmite. Because I got a Marmite tattoo, I now occasionally get sent like weird, cool, obscure Marmite shit. I got like some deep cut Marmite like off-brand stuff. I haven't had anything for a while, but I used to be on their like super secret hardcore Marmite lovers like mailing list.
What happened to you as a child that made you love Marmite?
Well, like my dad is Australian, so I grew up really eating Vegemite, but I don't have a sweet tooth, man. I just I'm salty. I am a salty man. I'm a salty boy.
See, this is why you're in your 40s and still have a strong hairline, is because you don't like sweet things.
Yeah, and I've been mega dosing on vitamin B12 since I was about 5 years old.
God giveth and taketh away in equal measures. Now, for all the listeners who are curious, since Matt wasn't polite enough to ask what I have on my toast, I was still reeling from you insulting both my lifestyle choices and my dead friend. As a proud Irishman and not a vegan, I like butter on my toast, or have a little bit of avocado, a little bit of chili flakes, tiny bit of sriracha just on plain.
See, that's good.
Warburg.
That's good. But you know what makes that exact combination better? Marmite. Have that, but put Marmite on the bread first.
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas, I'll say that much. If you've lasted 7.5 minutes into this episode, you're very welcome to Beneath the Skin, the show about the history of everything told through the history of tattooing. I am one of your hosts, Thomas O'Mahony, and I am joined by my now not so distinguished co-host, Dr. Matt Lauder.
Hello, Thomas. Hello, beloved listeners. My book's out today. People have been getting it. People have been enjoying it. People have been sending me mirror selfies of them holding it up. No one said they didn't like it yet, so I'm sure that's coming. But people have been very kind.
See, my thing, I'm very excited to get a physical copy of the book. If you follow Matt online, he also tweeted about there is an audiobook version available. I am a little bit disappointed that is not narrated by Matt, because I would have appreciated tangents every 15 minutes about just random stuff interspersed that makes the actual book 20 hours long rather than the 9 hours it's supposed to be.
Yeah, the actual recording is 9.5 hours. Maybe that's why they wouldn't let me record. I did offer, but they paid a professional, a really great actor, voiceover guy called Henry Knott, who's done a really wicked job. It's funny because if you, me and Layla were listening to some of it earlier on just to see what it sounded like, and of course, certainly in the introduction, there's a lot of first person sentences like I, and I'm like, fuck you, that's me you're talking about, dude. But he's done a brilliant job. It's really great, and yeah, I hope if people in the UK want to get a copy of it, either hard copy or audiobook, they can do. It's out in the US. I found out it on the 23rd of May, so not until next year if you're a US listener, but you can, I'm sure, pick it up on import, Black Label, or as we say every week, subscribe to the Patreon at £15 for 1 month at least, and we'll send you a signed copy as soon as possible. I'm just waiting for a big box to arrive, then I can start sending those out to our really wonderful Patreon subscribers.
Exactly. And as you may have gathered from the title of this episode, it's not exclusively about Matt's book. We are talking about Ink Master. We are slowly creeping towards the finale of season 14 of Ink Master. Matt, give me your first impressions.
Well, my first impressions of this was it was really boring. I felt like the show... I mean, I said in the very, very first episode that you made me watch that it felt like a show that was unsure of its format and not not that comfortable in its own skin. Maybe that's because it's got a new host as well. I don't know. I didn't see the previous seasons, but this just felt really laboured. Like there's fewer tattooers obviously now, so there's more sort of time to fill with all the nonsense that isn't tattooing, of which there is too much already. I really wish that they'd add, now that there's fewer tattooers, another tattoo challenge, rather than having the same amount of challenges to do and have much more kind of weird, forced, awkward conversations. I mean, as I've said before, there's obviously lots of drama, or they want to create drama, but the producer's heart isn't in the drama. There would be ways to edit, I'm sure, the interactions between these people in a way that would be much more kind of compelling if that's what you wanted to do. The producers don't want to do that. That's to their credit. But what they're left with is just lots of cliche. And I honestly, generally, I found even the episodes that have annoyed me interesting because they've annoyed me. Like, this was just really boring, man. Like, I wasn't excited by it at all. I mean, we'll talk about all the usual shit about the theme and the Flash challenge in a second, but like, just as a vibe, I got to the end of the episode. I've only just watched it, so this was about half an hour ago that I finished watching it, and I was just like bored.
See, this is the perfect setup, Matt, for as we crawl towards the end of this season, getting you set up for the incredible content of the first couple of seasons of Ink Master, or alternatively other tattoo media such as Miami Ink, or a documentary series which I saw on Channel 4 the other night, which on shout out all four, shout out free content streaming, don't shout out their tattoo content, but
that was the prison tattoo one.
Yes.
Okay. Which as I'm not afraid or ashamed to say publicly, I was asked to be on and I turned them down. And it sounds like I made the right decision.
And in a couple of weeks we are going to do more in an hour than they did in 8 episodes talking about prison tattooing. But back to Ink Master. Matt, what is the theme for the week?
Well, the theme is precision. What did you think of the episode as an overall?
Okay, so precision. If you're looking at it from a technical standpoint for tattooing, it is everything. You want clean lines, you want, smooth color throughout a tattoo, but precision also means so many other things. It means being precise with how you communicate with your client, being precise in how you translate their idea into a design. And instead, what we get is welding.
Yeah, I wrote that down. Like, again, I mean, we've had our issues with composition and with contrast. This is like, I just felt like they're taking the piss now, because like even last week, which we talked about at length about whether or not that was a composition challenge, at least it was plausibly a composition challenge. This was a competition where teams of people, tattoo artists, had to weld steel, right? And then they were judged on whether it was precise or not. Like, steel welding at scale is like one of the least precise art forms, particularly in the hands of amateurs.
I will greatly disagree with you on that. Steel welding is, if anyone has ever done tack welding, it is an incredibly precise art.
Oh yeah, I mean, as I was saying, in the hands of amateurs is what I mean, right? Like, to do it properly, and if you're welding together nuclear weapons or submarines or something, yeah, obviously, but like kind of artisanal sculpture, particularly at scale. There's another reality show, American one, that is also kind of bonkers, called Metal Shop Masters.
Oh, I have watched that.
Yeah, which is also garbage, hot garbage, and those people who are professional metal welders don't do things in a very precise way, because that's not what the show is and not what the art form is. So I said last week, right, when we talked about the composition challenge that the human body isn't see-through. Well, the human body also isn't made of metal, and there is nothing about tack welding and spot welding and arc welding and cutting sheet metal and cutting pipe that is analogous to tattooing.
But Matt, I will say is I think maybe the producers of Ink Master are thinking to the future a little bit. Like when we all become cyborgs and robots, how are cyborgs and robots going to get tattoos? It's going to be through welding.
Well, actually, as I sent you that clip, we were watching this old UK program, well, old from a few years ago program called Goggle Sprogs in the UK on Netflix with these like kids watching TV, and there was some kid on there who was commenting on the fact that some guy on this TV show had tattoos, and he said, "Oh, you can't get tattoos because you can't get rid of them without chopping your arm off." And his little sister goes, "And then what?" And then he goes, "Metal arm."
Metal arm. Exactly.
Metal arm.
Like
you should cut that. You should cut that into the show, into the podcast, because it's such a beautiful little tag. So maybe that's it. Maybe the future of tattooing is welding C-3PO's arms on.
Would C-3PO get a laser etched face tattoo? That is what I want to know. That is what this episode of Ink Master is asking. So, as we've covered, if you can't tell already, I think you can tell that both of us really want some good content in terms of this show. They have to make metal sculptures using welding. Matt, do you want to read us out the themes? The teams. So the teams were DJ, Bob, Tony, and Anthony, which I think is a bit of a dream team actually. They chose to do a robot. And then Gian, Angel, and CJ chose to do as they initially called, Tree of Life. I did also laugh, again, something we talk about every week. The first instinct was like, let's do a skeleton, right? Which is, again, such a tattooist thing to do and presented with a bit of blank paper, but they didn't go for that. We also didn't get a Sacred Heart this week, so there's small mercies. No Sacred Hearts, no skulls, no skeletons. Instead, we got a Tree of Life, and we got a robot. Very, very inventive when presented with metal to make a sculpture. What am I going to make? A robot with chains. I liked the robot. I mean, I failed to care about it, honestly. Like, I'm very uninvested. I think one of the things that I was thinking about when I was watching this is that I'm quite uninvested in it as far as the Jeopardy is concerned. Partly because of the ethical issues with the Jeopardy, which we'll talk about when we come to the tattoos anyway. But, like, you know, even setting that aside, in a lot of reality show programming, you want to care about how well a contestant does in a particular task, and you can kind of see where it might go well or might go wrong, and this was just like, well, they're all going to be shit at it because none of them are professional welders. It's nothing to do with their skill set. It's not even tangentially connected. You know, even in Bake Off, if it's like cook this weird cake you've never heard of, at least like it's tangentially connected and lots of the skills are transferable, and it's a real test of something applicable. I really failed to, as I said, care. Like, I actually liked both of the final pieces. I thought they were both good. I thought they were nice pieces of sculpture in terms of technical, at least. They weren't very artistically interesting, but they were, they were good. They were fine. But like, I just sort of didn't care. And that's not any of the contestants' fault either. So like, Angel, Gian, and Jason did the Tree of Life. Like, it was okay. There was a swing. There was kind of a thrown together face. It was okay. I can't really say that DJ, Tony, Bob, and Anthony's robot was much better, but DJ, Tony, Bob, and Anthony won. Yeah. Do you think they shouldn't have won? I did laugh when the judges looked at that tree. Won. And it was really obvious that the producers were trying to shoehorn the theme, Precision, into their comments. Like, they zoomed in on this really raggedy-ass cut leaf out of a piece of sheet metal,
that hasn't been, obviously hadn't been ground or sanded or buffed because they didn't have time to do that. And then the judges were like, "Oh, you've cut those leaves so precisely." Have they? Fuck. You're just saying that because the theme is precision, and the producers have said, "Oh, in your comments, can you use the word precision?" Like it's such a creaky format, There was no organic response from the judges. Because also, this is the other thing that annoys me. What the fuck do those judges know about steel welding? Like nothing. They're tattoo artists. What qualifies them to judge whether a steel sculpture is well done or not?
Joel Madden has been in a pop punk band for the past 20 years, so I don't think he knows a whole lot about it.
He welded all of our hearts
to that first Good Charlotte album. So, yeah, DJ Tony, Bob, and Anthony won the challenge. Honestly, I think we just kind of want to go straight to the tattoos because this is exactly what Matt has been asking for. Hey, are you enjoying the show? If you really like Beneath the Skin and you want to help support us, you can do so on Patreon. For little as £5 a month, you can help make this show possible, help us buy research materials. So if you like the show and you want to support us, consider kicking us a few quid a month. And you'll get everything from bonus episodes to Q&As, and you can even vote on what tattoo I'll get when we reach a certain subscriber count. Matt, have you got anything to say?
You should really definitely fund the Patreon because tattoo history is massive, right? Deep, wide, complicated. We're covering some big hit topics on the main feed, but on the Patreon subscriber-only feed, we'll be getting into some really more interesting, niche, deep topics you don't want to miss out on. And honestly, the chance to kind of decide what Thomas gets on his body is probably just a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Subscribe, chuck us a few quid. Don't miss out on the chance to ruin Thomas's body forever. Is it?
Yes, this is exactly what Matt has been asking.
Oh, it's my fault. It's my fault now, is it?
So, Nico Hurtado sets a color realism challenge. So, it is a color realism portrait challenge. What have you got to say for yourself?
Don't blame me. This is what I was asking for. I'm noticing, just looking at the timer of our record so far, we've done episodes about Inkmaster that have lasted over an hour and a half. We're to the final tattoos already, and we've only been talking for 25 minutes, and half of that was about toast. Like that'll give you a sense of this episode. I think, I think again, it's a good thematic challenge because it's something that tattooists get asked to do. And I think, again, I'd have much preferred to allow the artists to work, even if it was a representational portrait, but to work in their own preferred styles. I think that would have been a more interesting brief. I guess it's harder to cast and probably harder to judge if you do that. And yeah, like I thought, again, talking about kind of running out of energy and ideas, that's not all. Here's the twist. The twist was this time, just tell us what you guys think about it as well. Like it was a sort of peer critique thing, which wasn't even really. It wasn't even that, was it? It wasn't even that. It was just like they all got to have a little opinion, which they do anyway.
Yeah,
like
Love Island does it better. But yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about this because the portraits themselves, like usually we would talk about the design and everything. They're all portraits of people. That I think it's fairly self-explanatory.
Based on specific photographs, right?
Based on specific photographs. So there is a couple of them that present a certain amount of difficulty. Ones with, a wrinkly old woman. Ones where there's specific lighting that might present challenges. But they're all babies.
I mean, I know that. I know that like friends of mine who are tattooers say that tattooing babies or tattooing young children, none of them were actually babies, to be fair, but like tattooing babies particularly, but young children is really difficult because lots of children haven't quite grown into their faces yet, and lots of very, 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 very young children look like potatoes. So there is some heart there, but of course, lots of people come in and want portraits of their babies and their children. So there is a kind of interesting question there. Again, I don't think it's a question of precision, actually, but there is something interesting there. But the thing that I did find interesting, and I mean, in a way, we're sort of hammering over some stuff we've said already last week, but it was nice to see it come to the fore for the first time, I think, in the series, where Tony, who doesn't do portraits, and as he said, wouldn't do portraits even if someone asked him to do one in the shop, was like, I don't want to do a bad tattoo that's meaningful to someone, because again, these subjects, although of course some of the other designs we've had, last week, for example, the koi are a good example, have had some kind of, extraneous meaning. But like the portraits are representations of real people, and some of them had passed away. We didn't have any dead children, but we did have some dead grandparents. And Tony really, I think, felt the responsibility of that for the first time, of like, oh, the competition here is set up to make me do a bad tattoo. And that's one thing if it's a capybara on someone's leg, but it's quite another thing when it's like a portrait of someone's recently departed grandmother. Like, that's a real different tone change.
And in the context of the show as well, the season that Tony won, he talked quite a lot about how important his family is to him. In the season finale, there was a nice couple of shots of like Tony with his father, and as someone who is like quite close with a lot of his family, and I completely agree with him. I think that intentionally, if you are someone who does not do color realism portraits, I think it would be the height of disrespect to do one knowing you're going to do a bad one on someone when it's someone that's very important to them. And I think he made the right decision to say, I would rather go home than do this.
Yeah, fair play to the guy. And do you think that's also a function of it being late in the series, that they're sort of entrusting their process to weed out weaker tattooers, and therefore we're going to have people that can do the job?
I don't think so. I think they are playing the hits in terms of what has been popular in previous seasons. But I think this is also a symptom of the narrowing down of the stylistic variation of all the competitors,
Yeah, right. I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, Tony is the only one who works in trad. You have loads of black and grey artists. You have Jason, who is very versatile. You've DJ. You have Gian, who does, neo trad, which I'm going to talk about Gian's tattoo in a minute.
Yeah.
He's really the only stylistic outlier in terms of this style, and it really kind of feels like if this hadn't been, obviously it was set up miles before, but it really feels like he was set up to fail on this one.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, there is something we've again talked about the narrowing of styles, and the way the competition's set up completely leads towards a kind of stylistic narrowing. Because, yeah, if you're a great blackwork artist, or you're a great, abstract tattooer, or you're someone that does kind of really interesting, conceptual wash work, or you're a great Japanese tattooer or something,
or a blackwork artist.
Yeah. Like that's exactly right. You're not gonna. The competition is set up to kick you out. Again, that doesn't really happen. This is also the problem, I think, with the Flash Challenge issue, right? So I was thinking about this again watching Bake Off the other day. In Bake Off, every challenge is a baking challenge, right? So even if you're really bad at whatever the week is, like it's bread week or cake or you muck up the technical because it's some weird thing you've never heard of before, some weird cake or some weird bread products you've never had, they're gonna get a sense over the 3 challenges in a Bake Off episode about how good a baker you are. And actually the conversations by the judges in that program are about how well your skill sets have been applied to the challenge given your experience. The same is true again of the pottery show and the glass blowing show as well, right? Like every challenge is even if it's more in one person's wheelhouse than others, there's several challenges per episode. But because the Flash Challenge has literally nothing to do with tattooing, and it's all down to that final thing, if that final thing isn't in your wheelhouse, you've got nowhere to go, and you're going to end up getting eliminated. And we've seen that pretty much Not exactly with every week, but many of the eliminations over the course of the series have been of that kind. Yeah, and the whole thing leads to, as I said, and as you said, like this homogeneity, right? This similarity in terms of the quality of, not the quality of tattooing, the styles of tattooing. Because also, as I've also said, these guys are all, they're all good. They're all all right. They're all pretty good tattooers, you know. Like I'm not going to deny that. They're all good tattoo artists. I don't think any of them are excellent tattoo artists. Maybe that's also because excellent people in their professions don't go on competition shows. But
250 grand, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
What if there's a competition of what if there's a competition of Britain's next great academic?
Oh, we'd all be in trouble. I mean, how could, I mean, again, if I'm going to kind of fantasy produce this program, like a precision thing would be like tattoo a straight line, right? Find some people who are super heavy tattooed who don't give a fuck if you tattoo a straight line on them, right? There's loads of people like that who've got loads of random tattoos all over their bodies. Loads of tattooers have lots of random things in their body. Let's make it tattoo a straight line, 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, and let's see how straight that tattoo is. Tattoo a circle. Like, that feels exciting. There's jeopardy. It's genuinely transferable. And then we get to, like, yeah, the kind of final challenge, and maybe the precision is do a really awesome portrait in your chosen style. We'll make sure that we're not having this weird competition thing where you're getting cast random people. The person's coming to you because they like your style. You're doing a portrait or a figurative representation, and we'll judge it on precision, on line work, line weight, on relationship to the original source image, if that's what you want to do. Like, there's ways of doing this. It's probably a lot more expensive and time consuming to film and cast. So that's obviously why they don't do it. But it would be a tattoo show, and I think you could do it.
Anyone who is a commissioning editor at Channel 4, let us know.
Yeah.
So I suppose, I think we've accepted this is going to be a short episode. Next week, we are going to do both parts of the finale together. It's going to be a bumper, probably 2-hour plus episode. So, Matt, we're exhausted. Let's talk about some bad tattoos. Bad tattoos of people that people love.
Yeah, again, like, I think bad is too strong, man. They're just average, right? I think this is why Tony was so frustrated, because I think, like, in my opinion, and I'll be interested to see which ones you thought were really bad. I thought I've seen lots of bad portraits, right, of people. So, and these were all right. None of them were stunning. All of them had things wrong with them, but they were okay. All of them were okay, and better than probably what a lot of those people would have got if they'd walked into their local tattoo studios in wherever they're from and given them their tattooist the same photo as that. So I think that mediocrity is what disappointed me. I didn't think that any of them were really bad. Which ones did you really think were bad? Start with your least favourite.
Gian. Gian did the worst portrait of the week. Like, he did
the grandma.
The old woman who in the picture had like lots of like very deep defined wrinkles, and it was like he used Face App to like smooth off her face. The hair, she looked like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. If that was me and that was my grandmother, I'd be reaching for the cheese grater. And everyone knows how much I like Gian as well.
Yeah. Well, so controversial opinion, maybe then. I think that's all right, because artists, and in the history of portraiture in general, portraits are flattering, right, compared to the reality of their sitters. And I thought that, I mean, one of the problems perhaps is what the judges pointed out is actually probably because he runs out of time, he does a lot of wrinkles in the lower half of the neck and face, and then gets less wrinkly as he gets up to the forehead, like the grandma's had Botox. Like, I think that's a reasonable criticism, that it's not evenly rendered. But I think the fact that she looks a bit younger than she does in the actual picture is all right if he'd committed to that, because that's sometimes what portraits can do. You know, they can be idealized versions of the subject. So I didn't have a problem per se with the fact that she looked younger, but I think maybe your criticism and mine are not that far apart in a way. Like I think maybe if he'd have committed to idealization, that would have been better than running out of time to do a more articulated set of wrinkles in the forehead.
Who's next?
Who's next? Well, which ones did I not like? So I was okay with Gian's. I didn't like Angel's as much as the judges did. I thought the perspective was weird. Like, she'd mucked up the perspective. And, tattooing she was a portrait of a little girl. It had those kind of issues of it. It looked like more like a generic little girl than the specific little girl in the photo. And it was perspectively because of the foreshortening of the photograph. Sorry, this is a bit technical historically, but the foreshortening of the photograph, the way that was rendered on the skin, made the face look a bit weird and distorted. So I wasn't a huge fan. Yeah, it looked like Chucky. I mean, again, I thought in terms of the use of like shading and color and stuff, I think it was okay. I mean, I think Bob, whose thing I really liked, made good use of lines. He didn't make good use of contrast, but he was using line work, which a lot of the others didn't do. I mean, one of the things that I'd like to have seen Nico is as they said, correctly reinvented this genre basically by being freaking amazing. And his work is very, very dense and contrasty, and it's really great. I'd like to have seen him have more space to do the critiques than he got. To talk a bit more detail about what was working and what wasn't. I really liked Bob's. I really liked DJ's. I thought DJ's was the best. I thought it was a bit more illustrative than realistic.
I'd take back, they weren't all shit. I did like DJ's. I thought it was a really good rendition of the photo, but I think DJ achieved what Gian was trying to do.
Yeah, 100%. It wasn't. I mean, DJ's wasn't really realistic in the Nico Hurtado sense. It was much more illustrative, which again is fine and good, and what makes for a probably better tattoo and a better tattoo with more longevity than a strict realistic rendering that by someone who doesn't quite know what they're doing. So yeah, I thought him playing with the limits of the style a bit really paid off. Again, something which is a bit of a weakness in the judging over from week to week, because sometimes that's the kind of thing that the judges would really have picked up on and they didn't here. But I really like that. I actually thought Anthony's weirdly was okay. The line work was a bit odd, I noted, but I thought it was pretty good. And then obviously the bottom three, which I did actually. I would have put Jason in the bottom three, but I agreed with the other two, Tony and CJ. Jason's, just didn't really impress me. I haven't really got any complicated notes on that. What did you make of Jason's?
It was okay, passable at best.
Yeah, and I wonder, I would have liked him to kind of go at it a bit harder. And then the other two, so CJ. Oh yes. I did have some notes about CJ. CJ's stuff was like weirdly coloured, but other than that, okay. I think they pointed out, didn't they, the stuff with the hair being too ginger, and then Tony, who ended up going home.
Tony, who did a fantastic tattoo of Gary Newman off the Tubeway Army cover.
It looked like the guy had like makeup on because his neck was way darker than his face, because as again was pointed out, he didn't finish it. I wish again he'd have been a bit like last week. Actually, he sort of did the same thing he did last week and second guess himself on the style like he did with Japanese. If he'd have been like DJ and rendered that in a way that was a bit closer to a style he's comfortable in, I think he would have got away with it. That's also true last week as well, right? If he'd have rendered that God of Thunder that he did last week in a more comfortable style for him, he would have done better than he did last week. And I think basically he made the same mistake 2 weeks in a row. I'm sad to see him go. I wouldn't have sent him home. I would have sent home probably Creepy Jason of those. But yeah, I guess like you can't really argue with that decision, in a way, right?
Yeah. No, I do you know what? I think when I saw Tony arguing about not wanting to do the tattoo, I thought the producers were going to let him go and then say, okay, everyone is safe, but you have to
Oh, interesting.
do something and you'll be safe for like the elimination tattoo or the flash challenge next week. But no, he did it. And do you know what? I think for someone who that style is completely out of what they do, he didn't do a half bad job.
No, again, I've seen worse, and I really hope that he'll take the judges up on their suggestion and go and finish that tattoo. I've seen that kind of hybrid of like realistic-ish portrait plus traditional with some roses or some snakes or some framing or at least was a pretty trendy or thing to do. Lots of flash artists were doing things like that, and I think he could have lent into it harder and done better, and I think he was a bit hard done by the format. But what we're left with in the final, right? So we're left with Angel, DJ, Gian, Anthony, and CJ. Anthony, whose child, let's
Anthony
point out,
and
is still
Bob.
at home starving.
That's CJ.
And is a set of tattooers who all work in a very similar style.
Greek statues are the new clocks and roses. So with
So
that
you told me.
With that in mind, thank you very much for listening to this express version of Beneath the Skin Watches Ink Master. If you'd like to see more of us, you can follow us online on Twitter at Beneath Skin Pod. You can follow me at Guyney's. That's Guyneys. You can buy Matt's book from any reputable retailers, or if you want to support the show, if you subscribe at the £15 tier for at least 1 month, we will send you a signed copy of Matt's book.
Yes, and thank you. I am on Matt Lodder on Twitter, Matt Lodder on Instagram. I teach at the University of Essex. You can throw things in the air and holler in my general direction, and I will get back to you when I get round to it. I think it's better to cut this short than drag this out because, I'd be interested to know if people who are listening to these episodes, and please message us and tell us. If you're listening to this show and you watch Ink Master, let us know. But I'm really interested to know if people are listening to this and not watching Ink Master, which might be the case because it's not actually easily available on streaming in the UK. I'd be really interested to know if there's value here. And we didn't even get really into any history off the back of these. I probably could have pushed a bit more on the history of portrait tattooing. But I'd be interested to know what people are getting out of these episodes of the Ink Master watch, because I think there is interesting stuff happening in them, even if the show isn't that interesting on every occasion.
Our podcast is just that good. With that in mind, thank you very much from me, Thomas.
Bye.
Goodbye.